This isn't a bus fare, young man. The first-class cabin is exclusively for individuals of true significance. These were the final words Beatrice uttered, moments before committing the most catastrophic blunder of her professional life. She genuinely believed she was merely asserting dominance over a common ruffian. Little did she realize, the unassuming boy in the hoodie possessed the authority to immobilize the entire airline fleet. With a mere text message, as the captain abruptly engaged the brakes mid-runway and pivoted the aircraft, a collective gasp swept through the cabin, yet Beatrice's face drained of all color. The pilot wasn't reversing course due to a technical malfunction. He was returning specifically to terminate her employment, remain until the conclusion to witness the most merciless, immediate retribution ever recorded in the annals of aviation. Within JFK's Terminal 4, the atmosphere hung heavy with the rich aroma of gourmet coffee and the hushed murmur of lucrative, high-stakes dealings. This opulent space served as the exclusive lounge for Royal Horizon Airlines, a carrier that boasted its unparalleled service, reserved solely for the planet's elite 1%. Securing a position with Royal Horizon transcended mere employment. It was an undeniable emblem of prestige, a badge worn with unparalleled ferocity by Beatrice. With a subtle adjustment of her silk scarf, her gaze meticulously swept across the queue of waiting passengers, exhibiting the chilling precision of a predator identifying its most vulnerable target. As the senior purser assigned to Flight RH88 bound for London Heathrow, she regarded the first-class cabin as her undisputed personal dominion. Within her mind, a stringent checklist dictated who merited entry: impeccably tailored suits, gleaming Patek Philippe timepieces, and the unmistakable, world-weary ennui of generational wealth. Should one fail to meet her exacting standards, Beatrice ensured their awareness was absolute. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling," she purred, her voice a silken caress, accompanied by a meticulously rehearsed smile. She bestowed a flawless, almost artificial smile upon a distinguished silver-haired gentleman clutching a gleaming platinum card. "Seat 2A awaits your presence. Your champagne is already perfectly chilled." As captivating as ever, Beatrice, Mr. Sterling acknowledged her with a brief nod, then glided effortlessly past. Her meticulously crafted smile evaporated the instant the subsequent passenger approached. The very air around the podium transformed, plummeting from an inviting warmth to an arctic hostility in a mere fraction of a second. Before her stood a youth, seemingly no older than 19. He was a tall, black individual, clad in an expansive gray hoodie, relaxed basketball shorts, and a pair of well-worn, vintage Jordans. A substantial pair of headphones rested casually round his neck, and a visibly battered duffel bag was casually slung over one shoulder. In Beatrice's discerning estimation, he appeared utterly out of place, as if he had mistakenly veered off course en route to a common bus terminal. Uttering not a single syllable, he merely set his boarding pass silently upon the polished marble counter. Beatrice, however, completely disregarded the pass itself. Her gaze, instead, meticulously traveled from his worn shoes up to his oversized hoodie, and finally settled upon his impassive face. A brief, disbelieving huff escaped her lips, a derisive chuckle thinly veiled as a sigh. "Sweetie," she drawled, her voice a saccharine cascade of condescension, "you've clearly taken a wrong turn. Economy boarding commences at gate 45. This, my dear, is the exclusive priority lane, strictly reserved for our esteemed first-class clientele." Jaden, the young man in question, remained utterly unperturbed. His gentle, perceptive eyes held a discernible weariness. "I am aware," he responded, his voice resonating with a surprising depth and unwavering composure. "I am indeed a passenger on this particular flight." Beatrice dramatically rolled her eyes, deliberately ensuring that the queue of passengers behind him bore witness to her profound irritation. She then gingerly retrieved the boarding pass, holding it between two fingers as if it were a contaminated scrap of paper. Her gaze flickered over it, anticipating a mundane seat assignment such as for 2F or 55C. Her eyes instinctively narrowed. The text boldly declared, "Passenger Jaden Cole, Seat 1A, Status VIP." The audacious lettering seemed to openly defy her. "Seat 1A, the owner's opulent suite, represented the most exclusive and costly private sanctuary aboard the aircraft, typically designated for A-list luminaries or high-ranking diplomatic figures. Beatrice erupted into laughter, a harsh, piercing sound that compelled nearby individuals to instinctively turn their heads. "All right, this has genuinely crossed into the realm of the absurd," she declared, disdainfully flicking the boarding pass back towards him. The document drifted from the counter, settling on the ground. "Where did you acquire this? Was it downloaded from the web or perhaps pilfered from a parent's purse?" Alex deliberately stooped to retrieve the boarding pass. His expression wasn't one of rage, but rather a profound sense of disillusionment. "I purchased this ticket. It is legitimate," Alex stated. "Feel free to scan it." "I refuse to scan a fraudulent ticket, and I won't delay my queue for a mere trick," Brenda retorted sharply, her features growing rigid. She gestured towards the security personnel positioned nearby. "Our policy against deception is absolute," Brenda declared. "Should you not depart immediately, I will ensure your permanent ban from this airline." "Verify the system," Alex insisted, his tone becoming resolute. "Simply enter the name Cole. I don't require a system check." "To confirm you have no business in seat 1A, Brenda whispered venomously, leaning across the counter to ensure only he could overhear. "Seat 1A commands a price of $20,000. Your appearance suggests you couldn't even cover the sales tax on a packet of peanuts." Brenda sneered. "Now, vacate this area or face incarceration." Behind Alex, a queue of restless travelers started to grumble. Brenda felt her actions justified. She believed she was safeguarding the sacredness of the premium travel experience. She saw herself as the ultimate guardian. "Is there an issue unfolding here?" inquired a resonant voice. It was Mr. Harrison, who had halted close to the jet bridge's entry point. He observed Alex with an air of intrigue, devoid of any ill will. "Merely a misunderstanding, Mr. Harrison," Brenda chirped, instantly adopting her professional facade. "This young gentleman apparently believes a hooded sweatshirt is suitable attire for the royal suite." "We are managing the situation," Brenda affirmed. Alex then fixed his gaze on Brenda, a peculiar gleam igniting in his eyes. It was not an expression of dread, rather, it was the calculating gaze of a chess master witnessing their adversary commit a critical error. "Very well," Alex stated. "I shall await." "You will not wait in this vicinity," Brenda declared, directing a perfectly manicured finger towards the common seating section. "Take a seat over there. Once I've finished boarding the legitimate passengers, I will attend to you," Brenda announced. Alex offered no protest. He simply proceeded to the plastic chairs and took a seat. Retrieving his phone, Alex did not appear to be a youth concerned about law enforcement. Instead, he resembled an individual meticulously anticipating an imminent detonation. 2 decades of minutes elapsed. The complete manifest of first-class and business-class travelers had now boarded. Brenda had welcomed each individual with cordiality and respect, bestowing praise upon their baggage and adornments. A surge of power coursed through her. She had effectively purged the undesirables. The boarding area was now deserted, apart from Alex and 2 visibly anxious gate agents. One of the agents, a younger woman named Lily, looked particularly uneasy. "Perhaps we should just scan it, Brenda," Mia murmured to Brenda. "Brenda, perhaps we ought to simply scan it," Mia proposed. "If it registers as invalid, then it registers as invalid. Should it fail, the authorities will be involved. The gate is closing in a mere 5 minutes." Beatrice scoffed. "It's the principle of the matter, Chloe. If we allow individuals like him to even conceive of such a stunt, soon enough, this cabin will devolve into a chaotic subway car." "Very well, then, let's ensure his public humiliation is thorough." Beatrice strode purposefully towards Jaden, her heels striking the terrazzo floor with sharp, decisive clicks. "This is your final chance," she asserted, casting a shadow over him. "Acknowledge this is a fabrication, and I'll allow you to simply leave. Dare to board, and I'll summon airport law enforcement." Jaden rose, his imposing figure now casting a shadow over her. "Scan it," she demanded. Beatrice snatched the pass from his hand with a swift motion and marched back to the podium. She held it beneath the scanner, a triumphant smirk etched across her face, fully expecting the harsh red light and the telltale air buzz. Beep. Instead, a vibrant green light flashed across the screen. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Cole." Beatrice froze, utterly stunned. She stared, unblinking, at the screen. The system had undeniably accepted it. This wasn't just a valid ticket, it was a priority override pass, a classification she had never encountered. Chloe gasped. It actually worked. "Beatrice, let him board. We need to close the doors immediately." A searing flush of humiliation crept up Beatrice's neck. Her entire narrative was collapsing around her, but her stubborn ego refused to concede. There had to be a mistake, a system malfunction, or perhaps even a hacker. "Fine," Beatrice spat, forcefully shoving the pass into Jaden's chest. "The machine might be malfunctioning, but don't for a second believe you'll receive any special privileges. I'll be watching your every move." Jaden calmly took the pass and proceeded onto the jet bridge. As he stepped into the aircraft, a profound sense of calm enveloped him. Mellow jazz melodies drifted through the air, and the lighting bathed everything in a soothing amber hue. He turned left, making his way towards the first-class cabin. Beatrice was mere steps behind him. She surged past him, deliberately blocking the aisle leading to the exclusive 1A suite. "No," she hissed, her voice barely a whisper but laced with pure venom. "You are absolutely not sitting there. My ticket clearly states 1A, Jaden replied, his voice unwavering. "I couldn't care less what your ticket claims. That specific seat is reserved for a diplomat who is merely running late." Beatrice lied, her heart pounding furiously in her chest. The very idea of serving caviar and Dom Perignon to a mere kid in a hoodie was utterly intolerable to her. Her rigid adherence to protocol was violated. "You will occupy the jump seat in the galley, or you will disembark immediately. Those are the only choices available. The jump seat." Jaden's brow furrowed in disbelief. "You expect a full-fare passenger to occupy a crew bench?" Her response was curt: "Accept it or depart. As the senior purser aboard this aircraft, my word is absolute." Jaden's gaze drifted to the opulent, vacant leather seat, a silent invitation. Then, his eyes settled on the cramped, unforgiving fold-down crew seat, positioned uncomfortably close to the lavatory. He retrieved his phone once more. "Very well, I'll occupy the jump seat, but I require your identification." "It's Beatrice," she scoffed, tapping her gleaming name tag. "Beatrice. Ensure you spell it correctly in your trivial complaint email. They're never even reviewed." Jaden settled onto the unyielding, confined jump seat, securing the intricate harness. He appeared utterly absurd, a towering figure compressed into a minuscule crew position, while the lavish cabin remained vacant mere feet away. Other passengers began to cast curious glances from seat to A. Mr. Sterling slowly lowered his newspaper. "Pardon me, miss," Mr. Sterling inquired. "Is there a particular reason this young man isn't in his designated seat? 1A, for instance, remains unoccupied." Beatrice offered a saccharine smile, leaning in to confide in Mr. Sterling. "Security concerns, sir," she murmured conspiratorially. "We suspect the ticket may be fraudulent, but we prioritized avoiding any delay to your departure. He's being held until our arrival in London, where the proper authorities will intervene. This action is solely for the safety of all passengers." Mr. Sterling's expression betrayed his skepticism, yet he remained quiet. As the aircraft began its pushback, the safety demonstration commenced. Beatrice deliberately positioned herself directly before Jaden throughout the presentation, her gaze fixed on him with an icy intensity. During her final cabin inspection, she deliberately nudged his duffel bag deeper beneath the seat with her foot. "Comfortable," she sneered, a cruel edge to her voice. Jaden remained unfazed, his attention fixed on composing a message on his phone. The screen glowed faintly, displaying the recipient's name at the top, Dad CEO. The message stated, "Gate agent ridiculed my pass, refused seat 1A, compelled me into the galley jump seat, and falsely accused me of theft. Her name is Beatrice. The aircraft is currently taxiing." He pressed send precisely as the aircraft pivoted onto the active runway. The engines erupted with a thunderous roar, pinning every passenger firmly against their seats. Beatrice secured her harness, a smug satisfaction spreading across her face. She believed she had triumphed, preserving the sanctity of her domain. Yet, as the aircraft surged forward, rapidly gaining velocity for takeoff 100 knots, then 120 knots, an event unfolded that Beatrice, in her 2 decades of aviation, had never witnessed. Abruptly, the engines ceased their powerful thrust. The mighty roar diminished into a disconcerting whine. The brakes engaged with brutal force, violently pitching Beatrice forward against her restraints. The aircraft shuddered violently, decelerating rapidly. As the takeoff was abruptly aborted mid-runway, a collective gasp swept through the passengers, plunging the cabin into an unnerving silence. Then, the captain's voice, sharp with tension and barely concealed fury, broke through the intercom. "This is Captain Harrison," the voice declared. "We are aborting takeoff. Corporate headquarters has issued an immediate directive for us to return to the gate." Beatrice's brow furrowed in bewilderment. "Corporate HQ," she murmured, a silent question hanging in the air. "Why?" The captain's voice returned, now noticeably trembling. "We are experiencing a security breach," he announced, involving one of our crew members. "Everyone, please remain in your seats." Beatrice's gaze shifted to Jaden, who, at last, met her eyes. A faint smile touched his lips, a first in their encounter. The cabin's silence, however, felt more oppressive than the force of a full-throttle ascent. The colossal Boeing 777, a marvel engineered to span continents, now moved with an uncharacteristic clumsiness, lumbering from the active runway onto the taxiway. The engines, typically a powerful roar of anticipation, now emitted a low, mechanical moan, sounding almost like the aircraft itself was dejected. The instant the fastened seatbelt sign extinguished, Beatrice unbuckled her harness, even as the plane continued its slow roll. Rising abruptly, she smoothed her skirt with sharp, agitated movements. Her face was set in a rigid mask of righteous fury. To her, the story was undeniably clear. The captain had identified a grave security threat. The hooded figure, unverified and perilous, was seated in the galley. The captain, she believed, was turning the aircraft around specifically to have him apprehended. She, Beatrice, was the vigilant hero who had brought this danger to light. Her gaze fell upon Jaden, still secured in the cramped, rear-facing jump seat. He appeared unnervingly calm, almost too composed. He casually scrolled through a music playlist on his phone, seemingly unaware that his actions were forcing 300 passengers back to New York. "I sincerely hope you've secured competent legal representation," Beatrice hissed, leaning in until her face was mere inches from his. Her normally agreeable perfume now felt cloying, suffocating in the confined space. "Interfering with a flight crew," she declared, "is a serious federal offense. You're facing a decade in prison, minimum. And for what? A childish prank? A fleeting TikTok video?" Jaden stopped his music, his gaze meeting hers, his expression utterly inscrutable. "I did not disrupt the crew, Beatrice," Jaden countered calmly. "I simply occupied the seat you instructed me to take." "I haven't uttered a single word," he continued. "Your very presence, however, is causing the disturbance. Do you even comprehend who is on this flight?" She spat, her voice dripping with disdain. "Mr. Sterling, a titan of the hedge fund world, is here, and Mrs. Galloway, in seat 3, commands half of Manhattan's real estate. Their time," she seethed, "is infinitely more valuable than your entire existence, and you've just squandered an hour of it." With a sharp pivot, she stormed into the first-class cabin, intent on mitigating the unfolding crisis. The mood in first class bordered on outright rebellion. "This is utterly unacceptable, Mrs. Galloway," a woman adorned in diamonds and cashmere declared, forcefully slamming her champagne flute onto the tray table. "A dinner engagement in London at 8 awaits me. Why, then, are we reversing course?" Beatrice adopted her most sorrowful, empathetic expression. She then dropped her voice to a hushed, secretive tone, ensuring her words carried to those nearby. "My deepest apologies, Mrs. Galloway. This unfortunate turn of events stems from a predicament in the galley." Beatrice vaguely indicated the forward section, where Jaden was seated. "That young man, the one I attempted to detain at the boarding gate? He somehow bypassed security using a fraudulent ticket. The captain has determined it's too hazardous to proceed across the Atlantic with him aboard." We must return to allow security personnel to escort him off." A wave of indignation swept through the passenger compartment. "That ruffian in the hooded sweatshirt," Mr. Sterling demanded, his complexion flushing crimson. "I had a feeling. I witnessed his confrontation with you. You ought to have physically removed him then and there." "I made every effort, Mr. Sterling," Beatrice lamented, adopting a long-suffering air. "However, current regulations are incredibly lenient. We're prohibited from physically engaging with passengers. But rest assured, law enforcement will be awaiting us at the jet bridge. Once they've apprehended him and escorted him away, we'll resume our flight. View this as a short pause in our journey." As she moved through the aisle, gathering discarded glasses, she deliberately stoked the flames of their collective fury. She craved a captive audience for Jaden's impending apprehension. Her desire was for him to experience the profound humiliation of 100 affluent gazes, scrutinizing him as he was led away in restraints. Returning to the galley, Chloe, the less experienced flight attendant, appeared visibly shaken. She stood close to the cockpit entrance, clutching the interphone receiver. She had just concluded a conversation with the flight crew, Chloe murmured, her voice quivering with apprehension. "I've just spoken with Captain Harrison." Beatrice inquired, seizing a bottle of water. "Is he absolutely enraged?" "I'd wager he is." "Did he specify the number of officers awaiting our arrival?" "He made no mention of law enforcement," Chloe replied, nervously biting her lip. "He merely inquired if the passenger occupying seat 1A was comfortable." Beatrice became utterly still. "Pardon?" Chloe reiterated. "He asked if Mr. Cole was experiencing any discomfort. I informed him that Mr. Cole was not in 1A, but rather in the jump seat," Chloe explained. Beatrice pressed, her stomach tightening with a sudden unease. "And then what transpired?" "There was a profound silence, an extended quiet, and then he simply disconnected the call. He slammed the receiver down with such force that it caused a sharp pain in my ear." Beatrice made a dismissive gesture with her hand, though a faint tremor was visible. "He's simply under immense pressure," she rationalized. "He likely believes we placed him in the jump seat for security purposes, to monitor him closely. Everything is perfectly fine. Upon reaching the gate, the proper authorities will resolve the situation, and I will undoubtedly receive recognition for identifying a fraudulent passenger." The aircraft ultimately shuddered to a complete stop. However, this was no ordinary gate. They had returned to Gate 42, the airline's principal heavy cargo loading point. Peering through the small porthole window, Beatrice observed the jet bridge extending to meet the aircraft door. Yet, beyond that, on the asphalt of the tarmac, an unusual sight caught her attention. Ordinarily, in the event of a security breach, one would expect to see police cruisers with their emergency lights flashing. However, no police vehicles were present. Instead, 3 dark-colored SUVs were positioned directly beside the boarding stairs. These vehicles bore the appearance of official government transport, or perhaps high-tier private security. "You see," Beatrice crowed triumphantly, turning her gaze toward Jaden. "They've brought in federal agents. You've truly made a grave error, young man." Jaden calmly released his seatbelt harness. His towering figure rose, stretching to fill the cramped galley. He then retrieved his duffel bag. "Beatrice," Jaden's voice deepened significantly, instantly making him sound far beyond his 19 years. "You possess a truly unfortunate tendency to prejudge people based on appearances. That's a habit you'll struggle to overcome once you're jobless. Sit down." Beatrice's voice pierced the air. "You remain seated until law enforcement grants permission to rise." Just then, the illuminated seatbelt sign extinguished. The distinct click of the aircraft door disarming echoed loudly through the hushed cabin. Beatrice gathered her composure, meticulously smoothing her hair. Positioned squarely before the door, she stood poised to brief the arriving officers the instant they boarded. She rehearsed her initial statement. "Officer, the individual in question is aggressive and has defied all crew directives." With a groan, the substantial door swung inward. Beatrice parted her lips to speak, yet her voice caught, the words vanishing, on the jet bridge. No police officer stood. Instead, a man in a sleek, charcoal 3-piece Italian suit awaited. He appeared to be in his 60s, his hair a striking steel gray. his features chiseled as if from solid granite. From him emanated an intimidating aura of absolute power. Arthur Pendergast, Beatrice breathed, a sharp intake of air. His identity was universally known. Every single employee at Royal Horizon Airlines recognized the name Arthur Pendergast. He held the position of Regional Director of Operations, overseeing the entirety of the North American continent. His authority was such that he reported solely to the Global Executive Board. This was a man notorious for dismissing station managers over trivialities like dust on their podiums. Trailing him were two additional men, one clutching a tablet, the other a briefcase. Following them, visibly enraged, was the station manager, Mr. Henderson, whose pallor suggested he was on the verge of being violently ill. Beatrice's thoughts spun wildly. The director was dispatched for mere ticket fraud. Her internal monologue continued. This young man must be an exceptionally skilled criminal, perhaps a hacker responsible for pilfering millions. Mr. Pendergast, Beatrice managed, advancing and offering her hand, striving to regain her lost composure. I am immensely relieved by your presence. The situation is fully under control. The individual in question is located directly here within the galley. I secured him. Mr. Pendergast made no move to acknowledge her outstretched hand. He didn't even spare her a glance. His gaze pierced right through her, as though she were utterly transparent. He bypassed her, entering the galley with the unwavering precision of a heat-seeking missile. He halted abruptly before Jaden. A profound silence enveloped the entire cabin. Mr. Sterling and the remaining first-class passengers strained their necks, eager to witness the impending arrest. Mr. Pendergast then executed a bow. It was no mere nod, but a deeply formal, respectful inclination of his head. Director Thorne's voice, thick with profound shame on behalf of the entire Stellar Skies executive team, declared, I extend my most unreserved and heartfelt apologies. This represents an abysmal breach of our standards. Eleanor Vance felt the color vanish from her complexion, her legs threatening to buckle beneath her. She clutched desperately at the galley counter's edge, striving to regain her composure. Ethan Thorne offered no reciprocal gesture, his gaze fixed solely on Director Thorne. With an unyielding expression, Ethan Thorne simply stated, Thorne. The name was instantly recognized. My father informs me you maintain rigorous control, yet today, your operation felt more akin to a sinking vessel. We are launching an immediate investigation into this sequence of breakdowns, sir. Director Thorne stammered, a sheen of perspiration forming on his forehead, defying the cool cabin air. Your father is on the private communication channel in the cockpit. Captain Davies awaits your presence. My father, Eleanor Vance gasped, the words slipping out without her consent. Director Thorne finally pivoted to face Eleanor Vance. His eyes were frigid, lifeless pools. Chief Flight Attendant Eleanor Vance, he articulated. He had no need to consult a name tag. Do you comprehend who this individual is, Eleanor Vance? She silently shook her head, rendered utterly speechless. This is Ethan Thorne, Director Thorne announced, his voice resonating throughout the first-class cabin for the benefit of the affluent travelers. He is the sole heir of Victor Thorne, the visionary founder and principal stakeholder of Stellar Skies Airlines. This young man is the proprietor of the very aircraft you are currently aboard. He holds ownership of the uniform you are wearing. In essence, Miss Vance, he possesses dominion over the very oxygen you are currently inhaling. The ensuing silence was absolute, almost oppressive. Mr. Blackwood in seat 2A let his newspaper slip from his grasp. Mrs. Albright's jaw dropped in astonishment. Ethan Thorne looked at Eleanor Vance. The pretense of belligerence had utterly vanished. In its stead stood the successor to a colossal aviation dynasty worth billions. I attempted to inform her, Ethan Thorne stated with unnerving composure to Director Thorne. I revealed my identity and instructed her to process the boarding pass. She scoffed dismissively at me, simply because I was dressed in casual attire. She asserted that I was only fit for economy class. Subsequently, even after the system validated my status, she refused me access to my assigned seat, 1A, a seat I had rightfully purchased, compelling me instead to occupy the auxiliary crew seating. Director Thorne's complexion darkened to a menacing purple, a truly dangerous hue. He whirled towards Mr. Davies, the terminal operations manager. Is this account accurate?" Director Thorne roared. We witnessed the security footage, sir," Agent Davis stammered, his eyes cast downwards. Miss Thorne aggressively flung the boarding pass in his direction. She publicly shamed him right there at the gate. And then, Ethan continued, folding his arms across his chest, "She declared to the other travelers that I was a criminal. She deliberately turned them against me." Just then, the cockpit door swung open and Captain Sterling emerged, adorned with fur stripes on his shoulder, signifying to decades of experience. He nonetheless appeared utterly terrified. He strode directly towards Ethan. "Mr. Cole," the captain uttered, his voice heavy with profound emotion, "I was completely unaware. Upon seeing the manifest updated with your VIP designation, I naturally presumed you were settled comfortably in 1A. The moment I received a message from your father, inquiring why his son was relegated to a jump seat," the captain seethed, fixing Eleanor with a look of unadulterated hatred, "I instantly diverted the aircraft. I refused to transport the owner's son as if he were mere freight." Eleanor finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper, fragile and fractured. "I wasn't aware he was dressed. He appeared. Like what?" Ethan advanced, closing the distance between them. "Speak it, Eleanor. What exactly did I appear to be?" Eleanor found herself unable to articulate it. The underlying racism, the blatant classism, the ingrained prejudice, the unspoken truth hung heavy in the atmosphere, repulsive and impossible to deny. "You passed judgment on me," Ethan stated quietly. "You determined my value solely by my footwear and my complexion. You neglected to verify the manifest. You failed to perform your duties. You simply craved a sense of authority." Ethan then pivoted, addressing Mr. Vance. "I demand my assigned seat immediately, specifically 1A. I have a crucial meeting awaiting me in London." "Certainly, sir," Mr. Vance responded without hesitation. But Ethan held up a single finger. "I refuse to fly with this particular crew. Her in particular," he declared, gesturing towards Eleanor. "And I believe she is no longer fit to wear that uniform. That uniform symbolizes excellence. She, however, embodies ignorance." Mr. Vance gave a solemn nod, then directed his attention to Eleanor. "Beatrice, surrender your badge and identification. Your service is terminated, effective this very moment. You will be forcibly removed from this aircraft." "But how am I to reach London?" Beatrice choked out, her face awash with tears, mascara streaking her cheeks. "You're missing a purser. You cannot depart with an insufficient crew." Victor offered a chilling smirk. "Oh, that's hardly your concern. My father foresaw this exact scenario." Gaze out the window. Beatrice watched as another set of stairs approached the aircraft's rear, revealing a replacement flight crew. A brand new team of 10 flight attendants, immaculate in their uniforms, poised and prepared, advanced across the tarmac. They had been mobilized from standby and expedited here in SUVs. "You're more than merely dismissed, Beatrice," Victor declared. "You're being completely supplanted right now, for all to witness." Commander Thorne motioned imperiously toward the exit. "Depart the aircraft, Beatrice." She glanced at the first-class cabin, at the passengers she had ingratiated herself with, the individuals she had mistakenly considered her equals. Every eye was fixed on her, not with a trace of sympathy, but with utter contempt. She had disrupted their comfort and gravely offended the proprietor. "You are now the public spectacle of disgrace," Victor whispered, mirroring her own prior words. "Savor it, Beatrice." She detached her insignia, the golden wings she had dedicated a decade to acquiring. Her hands trembled uncontrollably, causing her to pierce her skin, a single drop of blood marring her pristine white blouse. She surrendered them to Commander Thorne, clutched her purse, and proceeded toward the exit. The moment she set foot upon the jet bridge, she was met with a wave of applause. It began with Victor. Then Mr. Harrison followed suit, and soon Mrs. Davies joined in. Before long, the whole first-class section was applauding her departure. Yet, the ordeal was far from concluded. As Beatrice faltered along the jet bridge, her vision obscured by weeping, it dawned on her that she wasn't merely entering the terminal. She was stepping into a maelstrom of public scrutiny. The journey from Gate 42 to Terminal 4's exit spans roughly half a mile. For Beatrice, It transformed into a tortuous death march. She had anticipated disappearing unnoticed, believing her ordeal would conclude upon disembarking. However, she had overlooked the singular variable that governs contemporary existence, the smartphone. As she stepped through the jet bridge door, gripping her purse and her shattered dignity, she noticed the ambience in the waiting area for the next flight felt unsettling. People weren't observing their luggage or engrossed in books. They were clustered around their devices, murmuring intently. A youth positioned by the podium glanced up, spotted Beatrice, and discreetly nudged his companion. "That's her. That's the woman from the viral clip." Beatrice maintained a lowered gaze, quickening her pace. Her heels, typically a confident cadence, now echoed like the ominous, frantic ticking of a time bomb. She delved into her bag for her mobile phone, with the intention of summoning a rideshare. The moment she unlocked her screen, she almost let the device slip from her grasp. Her phone wasn't merely displaying notifications. It was a chaotic torrent of rapidly scrolling text, too swift for her to discern any single message. Unknown numbers had left missed calls, friends had sent texts, and a relentless onslaught of alerts poured in from Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. She clicked on the initial link, forwarded by a colleague who was clearly aghast. What appeared was a TikTok video. The caption, in vivid red, proclaimed, "Royal Horizon purser humiliates owner's son. Receives instant karma." A stark tagline followed, "Justice for Jaden," courtesy of Beatrice. Beatrice initiated playback, and a chilling dread seized her. The footage was neither unstable nor indistinct. It was crystal clear, captured in high definition from an impeccable vantage point, by an individual positioned in the priority queue. Presumably filmed by the passenger directly behind Jaden, the video left nothing to the imagination. It distinctly showed Beatrice laughing. The audio was flawlessly recorded. The voice stated, "You appear as though you couldn't even cover the tax on a mere bag of peanuts." The footage depicted her disdainfully discarding the boarding pass. It then revealed Jaden's composed and dignified reaction. However, the video's revelations didn't conclude. The uploader had seamlessly merged it with an additional segment, capturing scenes from within the aircraft. It seemed Mr. Sterling, the prominent hedge fund manager, had recorded the altercation in the aisle where Beatrice compelled Jaden into the jump seat. The video, uploaded just 20 minutes prior, had already amassed a staggering 4.5 million views. A surge of profound nausea washed over Beatrice. She reeled into the closest women's restroom, securing herself inside a private stall. Perched on the toilet lid, her hands shook with an uncontrollable tremor. She began to review the comments section. User 88 commented, "I've encountered her on a flight. She treated my elderly mother rudely last year. It's satisfying to see her finally cross the wrong person." Aviation Geek added, "Diverting a 777 mid-runway? That alone incurs fuel costs upwards of $50,000. Her career is over." Sarah Jenkins posted, "Picture being so prejudiced that you cause your airline immense financial loss and are subsequently dismissed by the owner's own son." Beatrice's immediate reaction wasn't regret. It was in primal drive for survival. She was, at her core, a tenacious fighter. She had ascended through the ranks with unyielding ruthlessness, and she refused to allow a mere misunderstanding to shatter her existence. "They manipulated the footage," she murmured inwardly. "They stripped it of its true context." She launched her personal social media applications. Her strategy was clear: seize control of the unfolding narrative. She intended to upload a tear-filled justification. She would assert that she was merely adhering to established security protocols. She would claim Jaden's behavior was suspicious. She planned to portray herself as the victim of an affluent, privileged individual. She began composing a Facebook update. "Today, I was unjustly dismissed for simply performing my duties. I was safeguarding my passengers from a potential security risk." The person in question declined to provide proper identification. Mere moments after she posted, the internet erupted, engulfing her in a relentless digital onslaught, much like a plague of locusts. First comment, "He never refused to identify himself." The footage clearly depicts him presenting his pass, which you then contemptuously toss to the ground. "Cease your fabrications." Second comment, "Beatrice, we've all witnessed the video. Your career is over. Remove this post immediately. Third comment. My cousin is employed within JFK operations. He confirmed the flight manifest was entirely clear. Your issue was simply his choice of hoodie. The doxing began shortly after. Her LinkedIn profile was publicly exposed. Another individual revealed her salary range. The hashtag boycott royale her has rapidly gained traction. The public clamored for the airline to release a statement, ensuring she would be denied her pension. Her phone chimed once more. The caller ID displayed a familiar number. It was Carl, her union representative. "Carl," Beatrice cried out, her voice laced with desperation. "Thank heavens, you must assist me. They terminated my employment without granting me a hearing. That constitutes a breach of Article 12. We must lodge a formal grievance without delay. I demand back wages, and I intend to pursue a lawsuit for defamation." A prolonged silence followed from the other side of the line. "Beatrice," Carl uttered, his tone chillingly remote, "I have viewed the footage. It appears to be manipulated. It's taken completely out of context." "Enough," Carl interjected sharply. "I've also conferred with Pendergast, and I've spoken to the captain. Beatrice, you contravened the Civil Rights Act, the Passenger Bill of Rights, and approximately 50 company regulations. You engaged in passenger profiling. You disregarded a legitimate boarding pass. I am a dues-paying member." Beatrice shrieked, "You are obligated to defend me. The union protects its members from wrongful dismissal." Carl retorted, "This was not wrongful. Furthermore, Royal Horizon has just issued a press release, unequivocally disassociating themselves from you to safeguard their stock value. They have branded your conduct as insubordinate behavior. We cannot intervene in this matter. You are entirely on your own. Refrain from contacting this office ever again." The connection severed abruptly. Beatrice remained seated in the airport restroom stall, the automatic flush whirring ominously behind her. She was utterly isolated, yet the genuine terror wasn't the ensuing quiet. It was the unsettling sounds emanating from beyond the bathroom door. Overhearing the cleaning women, she caught a snippet. "Have you heard?" One whispered. "About Mr. Cole's son?" The first woman continued. "He compensated every passenger on that delayed flight with a $5,000 voucher, and even treated the entire new crew to dinner in London." The second woman scoffed. "Now that's true class, unlike that horrid woman who used to staff the gate." Beatrice found herself trapped, unable to even exit the restroom. Her visage had become the most reviled in the entire nation. 3 weeks passed, and the apartment remained shrouded in darkness. Drawn curtains blocked out the world, while pizza boxes and unopened correspondence lay stacked high on the coffee table. For 20 days, Beatrice had not stepped foot outside her dwelling. She had attempted to weather the tempest, yet the storm showed no signs of abating. The tempest had settled irrevocably over her existence, submerging everything she had painstakingly constructed. Her application to Delta was met with immediate rejection. American Airlines likewise turned her down. Undeterred, she sought employment with Spirit, Frontier, and even a minuscule charter cargo operation nestled in Alaska. Rejection followed rejection, a relentless barrage. Her name was now red-flagged within the AIRS, the Aviation Industry Reference System database, under the damning category of reason for separation. The entry wasn't merely fired. It explicitly stated gross misconduct, security risk, and high liability. She was utterly barred from any position in aviation. Yet, Beatrice refused to surrender. A burning fury ignited within her. She was convinced she had fallen prey to a ruthless corporate machine. Consequently, she sought out legal counsel, finding a strip mall attorney known as Sol Sol. This was not the fictional character, merely a namesake coincidence. The unctuous man, Sol Sol, had assured her he could secure a substantial settlement. Wealthy individuals detest negative publicity. Sol had informed her, "We'll file a lawsuit for wrongful termination and severe emotional distress. We'll demand $5 million, he explained. They'll agree to $1 million simply to silence you." The day had arrived for her crucial meeting at Sol's office. She donned her finest suit, though it now hung loosely on her frame. The relentless stress had caused her to shed considerable weight. Driving to the office, she concealed her identity behind oversized sunglasses, desperate to avoid recognition. Upon entering Saul's office, she found him not smiling, but visibly perspiring. He sat hunched behind his desk, his gaze fixed on a formidable stack of documents that had just arrived via courier. "We have a significant issue, Beatrice," Saul declared, dabbing his brow with a handkerchief. "What kind of problem?" Beatrice inquired, her voice laced with a flicker of hope as she took a seat. "Did they propose a settlement?" "Not precisely," Saul responded, then slid a weighty document across the desk towards her. The document, bound in formidable legal paper, bore the Royal Horizon letterhead, gleaming in embossed gold. "This," Leo declared, "is a countersuit." Leo revealed, "They're pursuing legal action against you." Alara let out a brittle, nervous laugh. "For what?" Alara scoffed. "That I wound their delicate sensibilities." "No," Leo stated, his voice grave. "For substantial damages, Alara," Leo continued. "Are you aware of the immense cost involved in aborting the takeoff of a Boeing 700 and S-7-300er?" Alara's eyes widened slightly. "I have no idea. Perhaps a few thousand?" "Guess again," Leo urged, turning to page 12 of the formidable lawsuit. "The jet fuel dump alone, required to achieve a safe landing weight, $42,000. Then there are the runway slot fees and penalties from the JFK Port Authority for obstructing the active runway, $25,000, Leo paused, and passenger compensation vouchers, personally issued by Mr. Thorne, a staggering $1.5 million. Finally, crew replacement logistics, $15,000. His finger jabbed at the ominous bottom line. "The grand total of damages sought, $1,682,000. Leo's voice dropped to a chilling whisper. "They are pursuing you for over $1.6 million. Furthermore, they are invoking the malice and gross negligence clause within your contract." Leo explained, "Typically, employees are shielded from such expenses, but your actions, demonstrably fueled by discriminatory intent, as the video irrefutably proves, have dissolved that corporate protection. You are now personally accountable." The words hit Alara like a physical blow. The entire room seemed to reel around her. "I don't possess $1 million, Alara gasped, her voice strained. "My 401k only holds $40,000. "There's more," Leo uttered, his face etched with genuine terror. "The Thorne family's legal team. They play an exceptionally brutal game. This very morning, they filed a motion to freeze all your assets, pending the trial's resolution. Your bank accounts are now inaccessible. Alara, your credit cards are completely frozen." Alara shot to her feet. "They cannot possibly do that." "They can, and they have," Leo countered. "They're asserting you're a flight risk. I understand the bitter irony." Leo snapped the folder shut. "Alara, I cannot represent you. My expertise lies in slip and fall cases." He continued, "These adversaries are absolute predators. They would devour me whole. You require a specialized corporate defense team, which will demand $50,000 just as a retainer." "I can't possibly pay you," Alara shrieked, her voice cracking. "My accounts are all frozen." "Then I suggest you depart," Leo stated, rising to his feet. "And Alara," Leo added, his tone devoid of sympathy, "if I were in your position, I'd liquidate that car. You'll desperately need the cash, even for bus fare." Alara stumbled out of the law office into the harsh glare of the afternoon sun. She made her way to her cherished Mercedes C-Class, that gleaming emblem of her former status. She pressed the unlock button on her key fob, but nothing stirred. She tried again. A desperate second press, still nothing. Just then, a tow truck reversed directly in front of her vehicle. A burly man in a jumpsuit emerged, immediately attaching heavy chains to her bumper. "Stop!" Alara shrieked, rushing forward. "What on earth are you doing? That vehicle belongs to me." The man consulted his clipboard. "Alara Vance, affirmative, repossession order issued." Without so much as a glance in her direction, he recited details of the loan agreement, mentioning frozen assets and a clear violation of credit stipulations. "Stand clear, ma'am. You cannot seize it." "I absolutely must return home," she pleaded. "That is not my concern," the man stated flatly. He began to lift the vehicle, causing the luxury sedan to lurch precariously. Alara's spare uniform, suspended from the rear seat, swayed wildly with the motion. The gleaming gold insignia caught the sun's rays for a final, poignant moment. Powerless, she witnessed her vehicle vanish from sight around the bend. Left abandoned on the pavement, she felt utterly marooned. Her hand dove into her handbag, desperate to check her phone, to contact anyone who could help. The screen remained stubbornly dark. Her phone was completely drained. She had neglected to charge it. Alara surveyed her surroundings, realizing she was a daunting 10 miles from her residence. Stripped of her vehicle, her accessible funds, her employment, and her standing, she cast her gaze downwards at her footwear. Adorning her feet were her costly flight attendant heels, 3 inches of exquisite Italian leather. These were crafted for the plush, carpeted corridors of premium cabins, not the fractured urban concrete beneath her. She took a tentative step, faltering as she crossed the thoroughfare. Just then, a public transit bus rumbled to a halt at the curb. It was a municipal bus, packed with passengers, noisy and reeking of fumes. The destination display on its front indicated downtown. Alara's mind replayed the dismissive words she had uttered to Kale at the boarding gate. "This is hardly a bus pass, young man." Her fingers fumbled in her pocket, discovering a rumpled $5 note she had stashed away days prior. Alara Vance, once the imperious sovereign of Gate 42, the very woman who had scorned casual attire and personal audio devices, now trudged deliberately across the road. She ascended the steps of the urban transit vehicle, her costly heels clattering uncomfortably against the metallic surface. "Exact fare only." The driver muttered gruffly, his gaze fixed elsewhere. She inserted the crumpled bill into the fare box, receiving no change in return. As she proceeded down the aisle, she found every seat occupied. Forced to stand, she clutched a grimy handrail for stability as the bus jolted into motion. Her eyes drifted to the window, where a jetliner sliced through the sky, a gleaming silver arrow piercing the clouds, bound for some opulent, picturesque destination. She was not aboard that flight, and a devastating certainty settled upon her. She would never again experience such a journey. A year later, the Greyhound bus station in Newark, New Jersey, reeked of diesel exhaust, stale kernels, and profound hopelessness. This environment stood in stark opposition to the lavender-fragranced, marble-clad luxury lounge of Terminal 4 at JFK. Yet, this grim reality now constituted Alara's new domain. She occupied a seat behind a scuffed plexiglass barrier, clad in a polyester uniform that hung loosely, 2 sizes too large. The identification badge affixed to her chest no longer proclaimed senior purser. It simply bore the initial E. "Next," she croaked, her voice raw and strained. The relentless months of hardship had undeniably exacted their heavy price. A decade seemed to have etched itself onto her face. Her once perfectly coiffed French twist had given way to a disheveled, graying ponytail. A brash young woman approached the counter, her gum popping audibly, and unceremoniously tossed a crumpled stack of bills onto the surface. "A single ticket to Atlantic City, one way," the woman declared. "That will be $28. Beatrice responded, her fingers laboriously tapping on the antiquated keyboard. "You're missing $2, seriously," the young woman retorted, her eyes rolling in exasperation. "It's just a couple of bucks. Just issue the ticket, ma'am. You seem like you could use a faster pace." A spark of her former spirit ignited within Beatrice. She yearned to unleash a scream, to inform this insolent girl that she once poured champagne for dignitaries. She once commanded a cabin of 300 souls, wielding the very power of the skies. Yet she remained silent. She was utterly incapable. The devastating lawsuit had stripped Beatrice of everything she possessed. The verdict had favored Royal Horizon. She was compelled to liquidate her retirement savings, divest her condominium, and file for bankruptcy merely to cover a fraction of the imposed damages. The aviation sector had so thoroughly ostracized her that even a position at the airport's gift shop was unattainable. "I require the $2, ma'am," Beatrice murmured, her gaze fixed downwards. "Company policy," the young woman sneered. She rummaged through her bag, then flung $2 against the protective glass. "How pathetic. Find a proper profession." Beatrice mechanically printed the ticket and pushed it beneath the service window. As the girl snatched the ticket and departed, Beatrice's gaze fell upon her own reflection in the glass, revealing a bitter, shattered woman staring back. With a crushing realization, her heart sank as she understood she had transformed into the very person she once scorned, an individual confined to a life devoid of upward mobility. Her scheduled break then commenced. Beatrice retrieved her Tupperware container, filled with leftover pasta, and proceeded to the constricted employee break room. In the far corner, a small, dust-laden television, perpetually tuned to the news, hung from the wall. Beatrice settled into a chair, commencing her meal with a robotic detachment. On the screen, the news anchor's voice resonated with palpable excitement. And in the world of commerce, Royal Horizon Airlines reports unprecedented profits this quarter, primarily attributed to their strategic rebranding as the airline championing inclusivity. The broadcast then cut live to the corporate headquarters for a pivotal announcement. Beatrice ceased chewing, her gaze snapping upwards. There he stood, Jaden Cole, illuminated by the relentless flash of camera strobes, commanded the podium. He appeared transformed from their last encounter on the aircraft. A perfectly tailored suit now adorned his towering physique, yet he retained his distinctive rare vintage Jordans. This unique footwear, a hallmark of his personal brand, had been integrated into the airline's newly relaxed dress code. He exuded an aura of power, self-assurance, and benevolence. Beside him stood his father, Reginald Cole, and Arthur Pendergast, though Jaden unmistakably held the reins of authority. "Thank you," Jaden articulated, his voice deep and reverberating powerfully through the television speakers. "Precisely 1 year prior, I boarded an aircraft only to be informed I was unwelcome. My appearance, rather than my true identity, became the sole basis for judgment. The experience was agonizing, yet utterly indispensable. It laid bare a corporate culture desperately needing transformation." Alara's throat tightened, a knot of dread forming. He was undeniably speaking of her. In his narrative of triumph, she was cast as the antagonist. "Today," Cale declared, "I am immensely proud to unveil the groundbreaking Skyward Ascent initiative. Celestial Airways is committing a staggering $50 million to establish Flight Academy scholarships for disadvantaged young people. Our aim is to guarantee that the aviator commanding the aircraft, the technician maintaining it, and the leader guiding the company reflect the diverse global community we proudly serve." The televised audience erupted in thunderous applause as Cale, a triumphant smile gracing his lips, continued, "We are discontinuing the outdated priority boarding system that segregated individuals by their perceived social standing. Henceforth, Celestial Airways will implement zone-based boarding, prioritizing operational efficiency over any form of elitism. For at 30,000 feet, we are all simply individuals striving to return home." The camera swept across the assembled multitude. Alara's gaze landed on familiar visages, among them Lyra, the junior flight attendant who had once attempted to caution her. Lyra now proudly displayed the gleaming gold insignia of a lead cabin manager. Her face radiated joy. Her applause was the most fervent. Alara fixated on the display, her sight obscured by a veil of tears. Lyra had ascended. The airline flourished. Cale was hailed as a savior. Meanwhile, Alara sat in a desolate bus terminal break room, consuming frigid pasta. The door to the small room creaked open, and her manager, a stern man named Marcus, peered inside. "Hey Alara, your break's done. A bus from Philadelphia is arriving, packed to capacity. Get back to your station. I just require a moment," Alara faltered, dabbing at her eyes. "No moments to spare," Marcus retorted. "You're actively working. If you're incapable of managing the demand, my desk holds a pile of applications from those who are. You're expendable, Alara. Utterly expendable." These chilling words mirrored the precise sentiment Cale had expressed when he had dismissed the entire flight crew. This was the ultimate, agonizing turn of the blade. Her karmic retribution wasn't merely the forfeiture of her wealth. It was her current position, caught in the relentless gears of the same cold, impersonal corporate apparatus she had once ruthlessly deployed. Alara rose to her feet. She returned to her designated cubicle, settling behind the protective glass. A queue of weary, exasperated travelers had already begun to materialize. clad in hoodies and sporting headphones. Their shoulders bore worn, battered duffel bags. Just 12 months prior, Alara would have regarded them with undisguised contempt. She would have passed swift, harsh judgment, yet now, her gaze fell upon the young man leading the queue. He bore a striking resemblance to Cale. "A ticket to the capital," he stated, his eyes fixed on his mobile device. Alara drew a profound breath. There was no dismissive eye roll, no exasperated sigh. "Certainly," she uttered gently, her voice quivering with a freshly discovered sense of humility. "Immediately, sir. I wish you a secure journey." It represented a minor alteration. It was far too late to salvage her professional life, too late to preserve her wealth, and utterly impossible to rectify the past. Nevertheless, as she printed the ticket, a bus ticket for an individual whose worth was no less than anyone else's, Alara at last grasped the fundamental truth she ought to have understood from the very beginning. Elevated status does not confer superiority. A uniform does not inherently enhance one's character. The manner in which you treat others when you believe no one is observing, that alone defines true standing. And high above the somber clouds shrouding New York, Flight CA-88 ascended towards London, guided by a diverse and inclusive crew, transporting passengers who were afforded genuine dignity, leaving Alara irrevocably stranded in the desolate world she had meticulously constructed for herself. Thus concludes the tale of how a single act of hubris irrevocably derailed a promising career. Serafina, who once saw herself as the ultimate arbiter of high society, was forced to confront the harsh truth: authentic distinction isn't measured by the cost of admission, but by the very essence of one's character. Ultimately, she landed precisely in the very place she had contemptuously declared Cale belonged, even as he ascended to heights she could only ever fantasize about. This serves as a chilling testament. When one endeavors to belittle others, they often unwittingly compose the grim prelude to their own inevitable ruin. I trust you found satisfaction in this narrative of retribution, delivered with chilling precision. If you stand firm in the belief that every individual merits inherent dignity, regardless of their attire or outward presentation, then please signify your agreement by hitting that like button without delay. Your support is vital. It significantly fuels the channel's expansion. Be sure to subscribe and activate the notification bell, ensuring you never miss another gripping account of karma's relentless and often dramatic reckoning. Please consider sharing this impactful video with a friend who could benefit from a potent reminder about the profound significance of kindness. We extend our gratitude for your viewership, and I eagerly anticipate our next encounter.